Hey guys, this is Andrew from GNS Outdoors. So I've had requests to do a boat review here. So this is a post-season review. I used it a lot through the season. Not as much as I wanted to, but we got out on it a lot. We're gonna be hopefully getting started early spring. I'm hoping for like a March, April at the latest. We'll see how the weather is this spring, but I want to get out early and start chasing some snakeheads. But I've been requested a pro-con video basically, so I'm going to go through this thing. I'm going to start at the front and work straight to the back and just kind of show you things I like and things I dislike about the boat. Tell you ahead of time, there's not much I dislike about it. I'm super happy with the way this thing turned out. So let's get rolling on this, and I'll show you some of the things that, you know, little things if you were planning to build on a pontoon boat, things I would recommend doing after actually getting one on the water and using it for a little bit. So first thing I'll start with is the trailer. I really liked having the center lift trailer. It's super convenient to be able to drop it wherever I need to work on it. I've had it on and off the trailer a handful of times. It takes one person to take it on and off. You just put some blocks under it, lower it onto the blocks, and pull the trailer out. So it's been really good for that. It's super easy to launch on. One thing that we did for this trailer that I really would recommend to people is putting these pads on your aluminum rails down here. Having these pads on here worked awesome. The boat doesn't move in transport once you got it all strapped down. I mean, we've got it tons of ratchet traps crossing and everything on here, so it's not going anywhere. But having those pads for launching and recovery made it super nice because it slid on those pads really well and just on and off the trailer with ease. So like I said, I highly recommend that as the on the underside. If you've got one of these center lift trailers, give you a little extra padding. It'll help keep from destroying the trailer when you got metal on metal rubbing. It's going to rub your paint off, stuff like that. So having those pads really was nice. Next thing is I'll just go straight into the pontoons on this thing. So my biggest complaint on this boat, and this is my fault, is the pontoons. Had I done a little more research, I would have gotten a pontoon boat frame and stuff with bigger pontoons. So these pontoons have a real long nose cone. The boat is a 1970s boat. When I bought it, if you've watched the videos, you know that the deck actually ended right here. So it ended back and I had this much pontoon, you know, sticking out from underneath, a foot and a half or so of pontoon. And I didn't want that for bow fishing. I wanted all the pontoons completely obscured by the deck, so there was no chance in somebody taking a snapshot at a fish and, you know, gouging the side of it with an arrow, or God forbid punching an arrow through it. So I really wanted to make sure that they were covered, and I did that. I extended the deck, put these brackets on, and it's been good. But as you can sort of see it on this side, but the other side you can see it a little better. You can see where the water line was on this boat. So you can see this dark line. It's like, you know, way up the boat. It goes back. You can see the back end sat pretty much right where it was. But as you come up to the front, you can see how much it splits off from where the boat naturally rests in the water when we had weight on it, because you have to figure most of the weight's towards the front. So I really wish we had gotten a boat with bigger pontoons. They're 20-foot pontoons. They're actually 19 and some change, but call it 20-foot pontoon, and they're 19 inches in diameter. Each pontoon is rated, if you do the calculations, I did a couple different calculations for it, finding different things online, and from what I could find, the float rating for these things is about 2,000 pounds per pontoon. If you jump up to a 24 to 26 inch diameter pontoon, which is what they put on a lot of the more modern pontoon boats, a 20-foot long, 25 inch diameter pontoon has a rating at like, I think it was 4,200 or something like that. So you get the lift capacity, or the float capacity, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure the correct term for it, but each one is rated to float 4,200 pounds at 25 inches compared to at 19 inches. You're only getting a little over 2,000 pounds per pontoon. So you're getting, you know, twice the buoyancy out of each pontoon. So it gives you, it's going to let you draft a lot shallower. So basically, what I'm trying to say, if you're going to build a boat for bow fishing, make sure it's got bigger pontoons on it. You want some big 24, 26 inch at least pontoons, so that way you'll draft less water. You can get into shallower water. I can get into about 15 inches of water with these pontoons. As I said, they're 19 inches. You can see where a lot of the water hangs on this. It's up about there. So you've got, you know, that much pontoon that you're under the water, so you can only get into that shallow of a water. We did beach it a couple times. It wasn't too terrible to push it off, but still annoying to have to get in the water instead of being able to bow fish. You're spending time getting unstuck. So my biggest recommendation, if you're going to build a boat using a pontoon for bow fishing, make sure you got bigger pontoons on it. I may end up either this spring or next year, you know, we'll see when I can do it, see when the funds are there to buy the pontoons, but I'm probably going to end up in the next year to 2 years, I'm going to end up putting bigger pontoons on this boat. It's going to take some retrofitting, but I really want to do it just to give myself the capabilities of getting into shallower water and having being able to put an extra person or two on it. The most we had on this boat this year was 6. It wasn't uncomfortable. I would have liked to have a little more, you know, buoyancy on the boat, so that way I can take 6, 7 people more regularly, because it's not bad bow fishing with that many people. It just, the pontoons can't quite take it. So that's the pontoons for you. We'll work our way, we'll stay on the bottom of the boat here before we go up on top. But the another thing that we didn't film this, was this trough. So originally, if you watch the videos, you know that we built this trough back here, or not trough, but this transom mount. We got the aluminum that we welded together. It was one of the first things we did, so the welds might not look the best on it, but it works. It worked great to hold the motor, but what we ran into with it was it created a scoop. And when we would try to, as the back end would get pulled down by the motor, like any boat does, this would scoop the water and it would just continue to drive the back end of the boat down, and we couldn't go more than about 5 miles an hour with the boat. So we've got to get, we had to come up with a solution for it. I looked at trying to buy troughs for transoms. I could have done it, but I wasn't, they weren't right for what I was looking for. So we actually custom built this transom. I had the pieces fabricated, and then we welded them together. They're super watertight. The welds are doing really good, because this thing will fill up all the way up to the brim with water when I had it sitting out without having it covered. So our welds are good. It doesn't collect it. If we're in choppy water, some water will actually come up. You can see where the lip is there. Some water will get over the lip, and you'll end up with some inside if you're running through choppy water. I just keep a couple on board so I can bail it. I eventually, next spring, I'm going to put a plug down here, so that way we can drain the water out of this thing. But that's that. So if you're trying to do a bow fishing boat, you're going to want to make sure that you have a transom like this trough. They sell them, you can buy them, but that's what you want if you're trying to do the research for it, because that was one thing I didn't know. And you can't go fast with one of these. These transoms here are this style. You'll see them on a lot of older boats. They're designed to take like a 15-20 horse motor just to putz around a lake real slow. They're not designed to try to get you any type of speed. This motor, this year, we didn't have a whole lot of luck getting a lot of speed out of it. The best we could get was about 10 miles an hour out of this thing, but it was bogging down real bad because I'm over pitched on my prop here. Fortunately, I can swap these blades out. So for, you know, 15 bucks a blade for this Piranha prop system, I'm going to be getting new blades for it. For this year, I'm going to put a much lower prop. These are a 15. So yeah, they're 12 1/4 by 15. So they are, long story short, every rotation of this should push the boat 15 inches in the water. That's way too high of a prop pitch. I need to be at about a 11 or 12. So I'm probably going to try to go a little lower, and that should let the motor actually get up to RPMs, because with this motor, when I would try to go, if I was at half throttle, it would be running at like 8 miles an hour, and I'd go up to full throttle and it would bog down and really not pick up much of anything, because it just too much, not enough torque in the motor for this much of a prop for the weight of the boat. So one thing I got to change for next year is I got to repitch this thing, which, like I said, with this prop is very easy. It's going to cost me about 15 bucks a blade. 3 blades, you know, not the end of the world for me to throw it on, and I can still use these higher pitch blades for backup blades, because I'll go slower, but I can still get back to the dock if I were to bust blades off. So not the end of the world for me to do that. That's pretty much what I got for our bottom half of the boat build, front to back. So we'll get up on the front, and I'll start on the trolling motor up front and work our way back through and kind of show you what I liked about it. So with the trolling motor, it's a Hasswing 80-pound thrust trolling motor, and I gotta say I'm super happy with this thing. It doesn't have a lot of the fancy stuff that you can get with Minn Kotas, stuff like that, where it's got GPS and you know, spot lock, things like that. It doesn't have that. It is remote controlled though, and I only spent a little over 800 bucks I think on this trolling motor compared to any Minn Kota that you're gonna buy. You know, if you get an 80-pound thrust Minn Kota, you're bare minimum like 1200, and a lot of them, and if you get any of the special stuff, they just go up from there. So if you're looking for something on a budget that you're not worried about having spot lock and stuff like that, this Hasswing, you really can't beat it. This 24-volt Hasswing. They also have the 55-pound thrust for, you know, smaller boats that I'm sure would work good on even up to a boat this size. You could probably use the 55-pound to pull yourself around a little bit. It's not going to do quite as good as what this will do for these size boats, but it would probably still work. It's a little cheaper yet. But like I said, this Hasswing's been awesome. I put this plug in up here so I can unplug it when I'm not using it, and then the plug stays good on the deck. That's just a universal trolling motor plug that I spliced in to the end of this. And one review I read said about these said they had an issue with self-deploying, so that's why I've got this on here. It just keeps, this is how you deploy it. You push down these pedals by putting this little ratchet thing on, or it's not a ratchet, it's just a pull strap, but putting this strap on here made it so that way this thing cannot self-deploy, and you can keep that on there when you're running the boat or stuff like that. I just keep it on there for transport in the truck, just to make sure it's not gonna bounce loose or anything, because I live on a dirt road. It's a bouncy run. I don't want to see it bounce loose while I'm driving, so I put it on there for that. Once I'm actually on the water, I haven't had any issues with it even trying to self-deploy or anything, but I'm also not running up on plane at, you know, bass boat speeds and stuff with this thing, so probably not a big issue for me. But the overall performance of the trolling motor has been awesome. My only real complaint with this thing is I got 2 of them. I don't really like the foot pedal for it. Fortunately, it's remote controlled, so I don't really use the foot pedal unless I forget the remote control, which I've only done once. And the other thing that I've got a complaint with is its replaceable skag. It literally calls it in its instructions, it's a replaceable motor fin, and it's designed to where you can easily replace it with 2 little bolts. However, I cannot find replacement motor fins or skegs for this motor. I broke that off on like the 2nd or 3rd trip we were on this year and ran it the whole rest of the year without it. Didn't have any issue running it without it. Probably won't ever end up replacing it unless I can find one, but like I said, I cannot find the replaceable fins for this Hasswing system. I checked Amazon, which is where I bought it. I tried getting on the manufacturer website, and even the manufacturer website didn't have it in its spare parts selection. So they had other stuff. They got, you know, you can buy the props, which I do need. I want to buy another prop, but we drug this prop through all kinds of stuff. I went through rocks, everything else, and as you can see, it's barely even got chips in it, man. It holds up really, really good. It's a nice prop for what you're getting on this thing, and went on super easy. And it's got a lot of power. This thing will stop this boat. If I'm moving along at like half speed or a little less than half, there's 10 speeds on this thing. I usually kept it around like the 4th to 5th was what I found was good for where we were bow fishing. And I'd keep it around there. And the remote's got a full speed button, so you can just hit the button and it'll just take it straight from wherever setting you're at to the max setting and speed. And I got us out of a lot of jams and prevented hitting a lot of stuff with that thing. So that was awesome, having that capability. The foot pedal doesn't actually have that option on it. It's only on the remote. So another reason why I use the remote, not the foot pedal. But like I said, this thing had all kinds of power to get the boat where it needed to go. And I was able to drag this thing off the ground with this motor and everything else. So I was super happy with the performance of this thing. If you're looking for a budget trolling motor, this Hasswing's the way to go. I have no complaints with it. It's working great as of now. Used it all year. Like I said, no issues with it whatsoever. So That's my trolling motor with it. This floor that I put on it has held up great. The rubber didn't have any issues with stuff getting punched through it, didn't have any issues slipping on it. It's super grippy. Even when it's wet, it stays really grippy. So this diamond plate's, it's actually a vinyl, but it's a rubber diamond plate basically. I was super happy with the way that floor went on. My light rail system worked great. I do want to see if I can make some sort of cover for the front lights up here. As you can see, this light here actually got cracked right after probably one of the last couple trips we did. The one road near my house here, they did a tar and chip over it, and we were driving on it to go bow fishing before they tarred it, so it was pretty much just loose gravel for the most part, and I had one rock kick up and actually cracked this light. So I've got a replacement light for it. They're super easy to replace, so this will kind of lead me into my electric. I built these lights so you can replace each light individually without much difficulty. These just slide out. As you can see, it slides in and out pretty easy there. And all you gotta do is take these two screws out. You'll unwire nut this. You can pull that out. Take those two screws out of the top, and then you can reattach your new light. Cut this to length, feed it up in there, and once it's inside, you can splice it in via the wire nuts. So it's super easy to replace these lights, and I've got all of them set up that way. And I'm gonna have to do it for this one. This light still works, so I'm gonna keep it around. Even though it's cracked, it's not falling apart, because I tried to see if I could actually fix this. I took the corners out, and these lights are not really repairable, and because it's like glued, really well glued, the glass, and that's why it didn't break out even though the whole thing shattered. It's super well secured in there, so you can't just chip it out or pull the whole thing out and put a new piece of glass on there like I was hoping. You probably could with some time, but I'm not that worried about it. I'll just leave it as is, and it can just live as an extra light for an emergency situation. But as we're talking about the electric, back here, I'm super happy with the way I did my switches. I highly recommend doing more switches than you think is necessary. Having each right, left, front, rear and stuff on there, it was awesome having the capability to switch off individual banks if I needed to. If I was letting the generator warm up and we got a couple times we got on the water late, I wanted to get rolling early, I was able to just flip on like the front lights while the generator was still getting a little warmed up. It wouldn't kill the generator, but it would also allow us to see what we're doing. And then you could flip on, just the front left, front rights, and eventually put the rears on if you needed it. If you didn't want to have the rear on, you could keep it off. It was just really nice having it. And then for getting the boat back on when you're trying to back up, being able to turn the front bank of lights off was awesome for a trailer in the boat, because when I was backing up, instead of looking at a whole bank of giant LED lights, I was looking at just a lit up boat ramp that was lit up by the side lights. So highly recommend, at bare minimum, having your front lights on a separate switch so you can turn them on. If you've got a console like this, like a center console or any type of console, having a console light like these little floods was awesome. Those things lit up the whole front of the boat. It lit up everywhere you could see out here. They're just small little, I think I spent like $10 on the pair of 10-watt LED floods, and they lit this place up and made it awesome for being able to work on. I've got my onboard charger, worked great all year. I was able to plug this thing in and head out, and then when I was ready to go bow fishing again, just unplug it, and everything was charged and ready to roll. So I've got my onboard chargers there. Everything's set up here. I only had the two switches there for my LED lights, so you've got your front red and greens and then your white light that's here. I will say, make sure you put the white light away, because the white lights do not travel in those. Mine actually, I left it in there one trip, and it did not stay in. I ended up finding it in the trough back here. So fortunately it landed in there and I didn't lose it, but make sure you grab that in the dark when you're cleaning your stuff up there. But this console design worked out great. The bow holders worked out awesome. I would say this is probably the only side that I can really kind of store the one bow on, is this back side, because of the cams are wider than the cams that I use. The F31 from Fin Finder is the new bow that I got this year, and they've got a larger cam than the Fin Finder Poseidon, which the Poseidons are what I actually used to build this with the spacing that I have. When I put the F31 on here, the string for the bow actually contacts this corner, or down here even, before it hits my pad down there, because of how much wider the cam is. It sticks back further. So I just got to be cognizant of that. If I'm doing longer travel, if we're driving on the boat longer, anything like that where it might be vibrating, I make sure I hang the F31 by the cam on here instead of by the limb in front of the cam like I do the other bows. But otherwise it all works out great. It's nice being able to hang the bows up, having extra bows hung up. I've got my arrow tubes that I hang on here for extra arrows, so it makes it really easy to access that. It's not rolling around on the boat, and it's just really nice having it all right there. Having the fish finder was awesome. Be able to map out spots, put marks where I'm finding fish, stuff like that. Worked out really well. Next year I want to actually get out a little bit more during daytime and try to do some more scouting in some of these new areas. A lot of the scouting I was doing was while I was bow fishing, so there's a few trips we went out where we really didn't shoot much because we were trying to check out new areas, and you know, just wasn't finding the fish. So I got to get out a little more this year during daytime and see if we can actually find the fish in daytime, and then get out there, or find good looking areas and then get out there at night and do some shooting. But overall, I said this console's worked out phenomenally. Having this big bucket here has worked out awesome. Highly recommend for seating. If you're building a pontoon boat for bow fishing, use these fold out chairs. I spent like $6 a chair at Walmart. They're all stored in here, so you can open this up. You've got your throwable pads that are required, but these chairs here, you know, everybody sees them for tailgating, stuff like that. They are awesome to just throw out on here, because you can set them out. We had them all set up. You can relax, sit on the deck, no issues. And then when you're actually bow fishing, you've got nothing. The deck's smooth, there's nothing to trip over, there's no pedestal holes, anything like that. It's just really nice having everything in that box and away when we're actually bow fishing. You can see my camera mount. I liked having that this year. Having this 110 plug for running off your generator worked out great for the camera, because I was able to set the camera up. It sat on this pole. I just bolted into the holes there and right down there, and it sat about 6-7 feet. It's an 8-foot pole, so you figure it's about 6 feet above the console there, and I was able to film the whole front of the boat with my camera here, and I was able to plug in the camera to the 110 plug there off the generator, and it gave me, you know, I'm not relying on batteries at that point. I'm just strictly relying on the electric, and it worked out awesome to film a whole night's worth of shooting instead of having to swap out batteries or things like that. So recommend that as well. If you've got the capability to wire in a plug like that and you want to try to film stuff, having the ability to plug in your camera really helps in not relying on using your battery power and trying to switch out batteries throughout the night, especially if you're using an elevated camera like that sticks up that high. Makes it kind of hard to swap batteries out and stuff while you're bow fishing, because you don't pay attention to it. You got to constantly check it if you're using batteries. So being able to plug it in, really good option. On the back here, having the generator and the fuel on these shelves was awesome. It made life really easy. Kept a lot of stuff off the deck, because the only thing we had on the deck back here was the 2 bags that have the life jackets in them, and then I have 2 bags that I bring with me. One's like a tool bag and a kit to replace stuff on bow fishing, bows or arrows, and then the other one's just got some towels. It's a dry bag just to store some stuff in, like I said, towels. I'll throw my camera equipment in there and things like that, that are easily accessible. So I really don't have much that I bring on the boat with me, which just helps me to keep everything really clean and easy to walk around. And having the 360-degree lights was awesome. We made use of it last year, even if it was just backing up, but we did shoot fish off the back of the boat at different times. A bunch of the guys that went with us actually liked shooting from like back here by the console. They said they could see the fish from further. I didn't really get to experience that much. I did shoot a fish off the back corner over here at one point, but a lot of the fish I was shooting were off the front, simply because I was the one driving, so I like being at the front where I can see what the motor is going to hit, what the pontoons are going to hit, because if you've seen the video that I posted a while back, even though I was at the front seeing what I could hit, I still hit stuff and still ended up in the water at one point. So it you know, it happens. Funny stuff. It's always a good time on the boat, but just being able to have 360 degrees of light was awesome for this year. So that's pretty much it for this console and the top side of the boat. I really don't have any complaints with anything that I did. I had built gates. I definitely won't ever put the gate in back here that I built. May or may not put the ones in on the sides still. I haven't fully decided, but I definitely won't put the one back here behind me. As of now, I have no intentions of putting the gates in here because I really didn't need them for any reason. Just not something that I really needed to include in it, and after a year of using it on the water, really don't think it's something that's overly necessary to have on the boat. So if you're out and you're contemplating whether you need a gate, you can, you know, save yourself a length of pipe and don't want to do it. It's not going to hurt you to not do it. But like I said, other than that, just a quick overview of this boat, show you the things I do like, things I didn't like, which, like I said, the pro list of using a pontoon boat for bow fishing is way higher than the con list. Biggest thing is just making sure that you get bigger pontoons. That's my biggest con of this whole boat, is the pontoon size. And like I said, I'm probably going to end up putting bigger pontoons on it at some point, but that was on me. I didn't do enough research. I looked around, I really couldn't find videos like this, which is why I wanted to do the video series, because I know people like to use a variety of boats for bow fishing, and if you're looking for a boat this size, a lot of times your cheapest option is to get a used pontoon boat and do a rebuild on it. It worked out great for us, and like I said, it's not that the boat's not usable, but I definitely would recommend putting the larger pontoons on this thing. It just worked out for me that these work, but like I said, I really would like bigger pontoons. So my biggest advice for a pontoon boat, keep it as open as possible. It's much nicer bow fishing with a wide open deck than it is bow fishing on a, you know, very covered deck. If you got a lot of junk around, it makes it hard to run around the boat. Like I said, you can run 360 around this boat while we're bow fishing and shoot fish. So having that capability is much nicer than tripping over stuff. I will say, both between stepping up and down off a deck on a John boat and having one giant, you know, flat deck that you get here, I love this thing. I unless I go to like a, you know, one of the really fancy big boats like you see, I'll probably never bow fish off something other than this unless I'm going with somebody else. So I'm super happy with it. Absolutely no complaints that can't be either fixed easily or regrets on going with the pontoon boat. Like I said, my only complaint really is those pontoons. So if you're looking to do it, I definitely recommend doing it. They're plentiful. You can, depending on what part of the country you're in, you can get these a dime a dozen for a used older pontoon. Just look at how many people you want to bring on it, and then make an educated decision on your pontoon size, because you're definitely, if you want to get, you know, 5-6 people, be a little more comfortable on it, you're going to want to go with larger diameter pontoons. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But I appreciate you guys watching the video. It was awesome getting feedback throughout my build process when I was building this. We've got some other videos we want to do with some chainsaw related stuff, because as you can see, living in the woods here, I do a lot of wood cutting. I run 2 wood stoves at my house, so my dad likes to tinker with chainsaws and do stuff, so we do want to do some chainsaw videos here coming up, as well as we've got some hunting videos coming down the pipe, and we're going to be moving into some other outdoor activities here. So if you can please like and subscribe to this channel, throw a like on this video. Please comment any questions you have about the build. If you want to see something more, let me know and I'll do a video on whatever you guys want to see. So just let me know what you guys have for this. If you have any things you'd add, any things you'd change, or just like I said, just general questions about the boat, let me know. But I appreciate you guys watching it, and I appreciate all the feedback again from the actual build series. So that's all I got for this. Love the boat, highly recommend it again. And this is Andrew from GNS Outdoors. I'll catch you guys on the next video.